Jonathan Kim is in from Rethink Reviews, and he's going to help us do that. Let's watch a quick clip of Hurt Locker, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
What's he doing?
I don't know. What are you doing? There's enough bag in there to send us all to Jesus. If I'm gonna die, I wanna die comfortable.
John, is it as good as advertised? Let's start there.
I think it's a very good movie. I mean, it's very kind of episodic, so it's about a bomb disposal unit in Iraq, and basically starting with Jeremy Renner's character, whose name is William James, basically joining this already established team. And whereas the guy he's replacing was very, very professional and very much a really great kind of team player and team leader, and Jeremy Renner's character is basically kind of a loose cannon. I heard him described as sort of kind of like an artist, where he's very eccentric and kind of doesn't really think about anyone else and kind of does what he wants to, but he happens to be extremely talented at what he does. So the movie is basically just a bunch of episodes of them diffusing bombs and kind of getting into scrapes.
And, you know, obviously Oscars are coming up, and everybody's talking about how it might actually win Best Picture over all these amazing movies, Avatar, Inglourious Basterds, et cetera, et cetera. So is it that good?
I think it's a very tense and really interesting movie. I mean, I think that one reason why it's probably going to win is that it's really the first movie about Iraq that has done well, that people have generally liked. I mean, it hasn't made a ton of money because it's been a limited release, but it is actually a very compelling movie, and it steers away from overtly talking about the politics of the war and really just being a character study of what in the end are some very interesting people. Like the three guys on this team, there's sort of the loose cannon artist guy, the one guy who sort of wants to be very kind of professional and do his job well, and the other guy who just sort of wants to kind of go home, you know, just wants to survive the whole thing.
Now, here's the thing, you know, if the best case you can make for Catherine Bigelow, the director of this movie, for her to win Best Director, and right now she's very much in the heat for that, in the running for that, is that it is not at all political, but at the end, by the end of the movie, you totally get the message. My sense was the message was, what the hell are they doing there? Okay, so you went to a Q&A with the screenwriter. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so his name is Mark Bowl, and he had actually been embedded with soldiers in Iraq. I think he was writing for Playboy, and he talked with them a lot. And what he was saying in the Q&A, he said, well, it is a political movie because if you watch it, you're not thinking like, boy, I want to go fight that fight, or boy, we should totally be there, or hey, I think my kids should go there. And he was also saying, like, in a true Hollywood movie, the story would be like, there's like this mad bomber on the loose in Baghdad, you know, and these guys have to stop him, or, you know, otherwise he'll kill everybody. In this, it's like you never really see who lays the bombs. Nothing seems to stop anything. I mean, it's like they defuse one, and then the next, you know, a few days later, there's another one. And so it just kind of goes on. And I think one thing that he said I thought was really interesting was he said, we kind of looked at this movie as a deconstruction of the idea of heroism. Because Jeremy Renner's character, he's just kind of he does it because it excites him, and he's really good at it. And his character kind of gives a speech at the end where it says, you know, maybe as you get towards the end of your life, there's maybe only one thing you really care about anymore. And so that's kind of why he does it. There isn't any kind of noble goal. And the other soldiers who are with him, they don't really talk about how great the mission is and everything. It's just, well, we have to do it. This is our job.
So, yeah, that's what I loved about the subtlety of the movie, right? So they're all volunteering. There's no question about that. I mean, excuse me, I have a terrible cough.
Oh.
Well, that's disastrous. All right. They're all volunteering. In fact, the main character volunteers to go back.
Yeah.
Over and over, it seems, throughout the movie, right? And I'm all choked up about it. Sorry, man. So it's not like, hey, man, they got rooked into this war and they got a raw deal and all this stuff. But at the same time, you're thinking, well, what the hell are they doing there, right? This is crazy. And everything is wonderfully subtle. You can't tell any of the good guys from the bad guys in Iraq, right? But they don't lay it on thick. They're not like, oh, I can't tell, man, which one is which, them damn Hajis. No, okay, it's so subtle, right? And by the end, I was left with the feeling of helplessness. Because what can these guys do there to get anything accomplished?
Right.
You know, when overall, especially because the movie's based in 2004, and you know that it's going to go on for so much longer, and it's going to get so much worse before it begins to get better at all, if it does, right?
Right.
And so that at 2004, those guys, what they did was wasted. Wasted. It doesn't mean they're not heroic. Obviously they are as you watch the movie. But things got worse. And so all those efforts and all those lives lost, totally meaningless.
Right.
Which sucks.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about, also in terms of helplessness, there's so many scenes where they're going up to a bomb and getting ready to defuse a bomb, and they look around and there's just all these Iraqis just staring at them. And it's like, it's not that these are all bad people or enemies, but it's just that they don't want them there. They don't know who these people are. They don't like them there. Why are these American soldiers in our country? And I think that really hits home very, very much.
All right, so let's talk about the other movies that are contending for the Oscars. So there's obviously a political element to Avatar as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of political elements here. I would argue that Inglourious Basterds has a political element too. And if anything, it's actually mega conservative.
What do you think it is?
Because it's arguing for it. It glorifies torture. It glorifies not turning the other cheek, but eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It glorifies a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with. Having said that, I liked it more than the other movies. Okay. Now, but it was a very interesting take on that. So, you think does that politics matter at all, and who gets the Oscars, and how does it play out?
I think there has to be a message that people kind of resonate with, and I think with Hurt Locker you can look into it more and find the message if you want to, or like I said, the advertising it's been advertised as an action movie, and something that's interesting though is that Catherine Bigelow, they've been very kind of quiet about the politics of Hurt Locker, but apparently just recently she's come out and made some kind of stronger statements. She said that war is, quote, hell and a real tragedy and completely dehumanizing. We made a real effort to portray the brutality and the futility of this conflict.
See, the futility, that's what you definitely get throughout the movie.
Yeah, and she even
and
said...
it's a good character story, too.
Yeah, I think that's...
It's not just about the war, that's for damn sure.
Right, and I think that's what carries it through is you get to see these kind of interesting people, these clash of personalities kind of on this team. And also something else that was interesting that Mark Bowl, the screenwriter, said was there's a scene in it where they have a sniper fight, where there's a sniper fight happens where the soldiers and the enemy are like a mile away. And he said that was something that he actually learned from talking to soldiers actually in Iraq, where they said, in movies, whenever there's a battle scene, the enemy, the good guys and bad guys are generally really close to each other, and that's usually just for filmmaking purposes, so you can have them in the same shots. Whereas usually, what a soldier wants to do is you want to be able to kill someone from as far away as possible, And so, and someone had mentioned to him, you never see an actual sniper fight where it's just like these two guys that can barely see each other miles away, just kind of exchanging shots, and then at the end, not even really knowing if there's anyone left or not.
And thank God there's no somebody's running and it goes ching, ching, ching right behind him with the shots constantly missing. There's real misses, and then there's real hits. And
right.
It was very realistic in that way. So, I mean, does any of this play into it? Avatar, as we've discussed before, was enormously liberal, right? Does that help? Does that hurt? Does Hurt Locker's politics help or hurt?
I think that it helps Avatar in terms of being able to say, well, it's about some kind of deeper things. In terms of it winning Best Picture, I would be surprised because, as you guys talked about in the review, a lot of the dialogue is dopey. James Cameron doesn't write good dialogue. People basically say exactly what they're thinking all the time. It never sounds like the way people actually talk. The older members of the Academy are probably going to see it mostly as a cartoon, and they're not going to want to give it to a cartoon. Whereas Hurt Locker has sort of the stamp of importance. And finally, kind of Hollywood being proud of itself for finally sort of dealing with this issue in a good way in a movie that people are actually enjoying.
Right. Okay, so you think it's going to go towards Hurt Locker. All right, now, one other somewhat political aspect of this is female directors. And, actually, before we do that, you got the Weekly Standard quote? I love the Weekly Standard quote.
Yes, I do. So
this is about Avatar.
Right. So the reviewer for the Weekly Standard was obviously very upset about the John Podhoretz.
Podhoretz.
Podhoretz. But he was
Podhoretz.
so
Depending
he was
on how
he
you
was
say
saying
it.
that here's a quote from him: "Avatar is an undigested mass of cliches, nearly 3 hours in length, taken directly from the revisionist westerns of the 1960s, the ones in which the Indians became the good guys and the Americans the bad guys."
I love that quote because in this clown's mind, in John Podhoretz's mind, he thinks, well, obviously the real history was that the Indians were the bad guys and the cowboys were the good guys. Come on, Indians being the good guys. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, the Indians occupying the land that they lived on, not realizing that that belonged to white people at that point.
Right. So this Avatar revisionist history where the people who live on the land actually own it. No, of course the people who are going to come and take the natural resources are the ones who eventually own it because they have the bigger tanks. Revisionist
And I think this
history.
idea that Avatar is anti-American is really fascinating because it's like, is that saying that being American is going into killing Native people and stealing all of their resources? Like this is part of our identity. But apparently, if you're a conservative, that's what you think being an American and being a human is too.
I'll be honest with you. I love America. And everybody knows how corny I am about how much I love America. But that is 50% of America. Okay? We have done that over and over again. There's a great 50% that's the other side. Okay? But if you're going to keep it real, but don't get me wrong. I know what you're saying. Conservatives are like, oh, you think that's America? Like, oh, whoa, wait. You're getting pretty defensive, big guy. You know?
Yes,
So,
they are protesting a bit much at that.
right. So now, not a lot of women have been nominated for Best Director. Catherine Bigelow has been this year. How many women overall?
There's been 4. They've never won. Lena Wertmuller for 1976's Seven Beauties. I've never heard of that one. Jane Campion for The Piano in 1993. Sofia Coppola for Lost in Translation in 2003. And Catherine Bigelow this year. And so I think that that's a very good reason why she'll probably win, because I think it's seen as a pretty bad mark, you know, on the Academy that a woman has never won. And also, Bigelow is really interesting. I mean, first of all, there aren't that many female directors. Second of all, she directs action movies. Which is probably the rare, like Blue Steel, Point Break, Strange Days, K-19, The Widowmaker. So that's a very kind of rare thing too. So I think it's a lot of times things that win in Hollywood are things that are good for Hollywood, like Julia Roberts winning for Best Actress for Erin Brockovich. It's good for her to be an Oscar winner. I think that's probably why Sandra Bullock is probably going to win too. I mean, she's someone who she plays the Hollywood game very well. And you know, makes dopey comedies, makes kind of nicer movies, but she's definitely kind of a Hollywood team player. She's not going to speak out against the industry, and so I think it's in their best interest to actually give her an Oscar.
So you think she's going to win?
I think she's going to win.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny because I'm a real believer in Martin Luther King. Okay, as we're discussing who should win the Best Director, I totally forgot that she was a woman. I mean, like, of course I know she's a woman, right? But it never occurred to me, like, oh, I should wait it a little bit more because she's a woman. Who cares, right? Now, but we're not at that point, well, where a lot of people do care and they waited against her, right?
Right.
And now people try to overcompensate sometimes in Hollywood and in other places by saying, well, that should go in her favor because no one's ever won before. Hopefully we get to a place that I think I'm at where we forget. You know,
it would be nice. I mean, I think that it's not. I mean, I'm definitely not saying that's the only reason why she's going to win. I mean, I think that it's very easy to make the argument that whoever directed that movie should win it. But I think also, you know, when you look at when people really think about directing, they think of characters and how good the performances are. And you know, Hurt Locker has that, whereas no one watches Avatar and says, "Oh, the performances are great." You know, I mean, so
that's true. All right, final thing: if you had to choose who was the best director among, let's say, those 3, Tarantino, Bigelow, and Cameron this year for those movies, which one would you pick?
I kind of have, I mean, it pains me to say it, but I would probably say James Cameron, because the movie is it's such an enormous achievement. I mean, it's sort of like, it's like when Peter Jackson won for the Lord of the Rings movies. You know, they gave it to him for Return of the King, but it was really an award for the whole trilogy.
Right.
And this movie is it's like the whole trilogy in one, you know, and the fact that they pioneered this new technology and things like that. But in the end, I think that Academy members don't necessarily care about pioneering technology and think, oh, this will be great for future box office because there'll be all these great 3D movies and everything. They're going to look at, what's going to be the win that will make them feel better, that will make them feel good and make them feel that Hollywood is a great, important place. That's not just about making money. So that's why I think Hurt Locker will take it.
Now it's a little ironic because now we're saying, well, Hollywood is so liberal that it's going to make them feel better about having a woman. La la la. I mean, in some ways, right? And maybe in some ways that's true. I mean, it's not like Hollywood's loaded up with conservatives who are like, oh, it's got to be a guy. What would a woman know about how to direct?
Right.
Right. Although the proof's in the pudding, too, because they've never chosen a woman. So it cuts in a lot of ways.
There's been very few. I mean, there's been like Penny Marshall and Nora Ephron, who I don't even really like.
Be cool.
Right.
She's huge on Huffington Post.
Right. And then the Something's Got to Give woman was Nancy something. I can't remember her name. But.
All right. So listen, the best way to judge is you go judge for yourself, okay? And we're going to see on Oscar night what happens, so everybody's jazzed up over it. And meanwhile, go check out the reviews on Rethink Reviews on YouTube, and on Huffington Post, if Nora Ephron still allows it, and of course on rethinkreviews.net. Thanks for joining us, John. We'll be right back.